Chapter 1. Normal life, cracks appear. I used to think marriage was simple. You work hard, provide, love your wife, stay loyal, and she'll stand by your side. That was the blueprint I grew up with, my father clocking long hours, my mother running the home, both of them tied together by something unshakable. That's what I thought I had. Most mornings for me started at 5:30 a.m., before the sun even thought about showing its face. I'd wake quietly, so I wouldn't disturb her, shuffle into the bathroom, brush my teeth while the mirror was still foggy from the shower the night before, then get dressed in the same rotation of work shirts and slacks. Coffee in a travel mug, lunch in a brown bag, truck keys in my pocket. Routine. Stability. That morning was no different. She was still asleep, curled up on her side, one arm under the pillow, hair spilling everywhere. I paused for a second, just watching her breathe. I used to do that a lot, before the tension crept into our lives, just admire her in her most peaceful state. I leaned down and kissed her temple. She stirred, mumbled something, then rolled over without opening her eyes. By the time I pulled into work, my mind was already on the day's grind. Meetings, deadlines, bills that needed paying. 12 hours later, I'd come home exhausted, expecting the reward of a warm hug, maybe a smile, maybe dinner together like we used to. But lately, when I walked in, she wasn't waiting for me. Instead, she was curled up on the couch, phone glowing in her face. Fingers flying, smile tugging at her lips in ways I hadn't seen when she looked at me in months. "Hey," I'd say, setting my bag down. "Hey," she'd reply without looking up. Just that. No kiss, no hug. Just a flat hey. I tried to ignore it at first. Everyone gets busy, right? Work stress, friend drama, maybe even just boredom. I told myself not to read into it. But as the days stacked up, so did the little things. She wasn't asking about my day anymore. She wasn't telling me about hers either. The phone became her lifeline, a shield between us. She'd disappear into the bedroom early, claiming she was wiped out. When I climbed into bed an hour later, she'd already be turned away from me, screen casting shadows on the wall until she finally dozed off. It's the little things that rot a marriage from the inside, like termites in the walls. You don't notice the damage until the foundation starts to crack. One Thursday, I thought I'd change the pace. I got off work early, picked up her favorite takeout, Thai food, extra spicy, just how she liked it. When I walked in, she was on the phone again, laughing at something, her voice pitched higher than usual. She startled when she saw me. "Oh, hold on," she said into the phone, then covered the speaker. "Didn't know you'd be home this early." "Surprise," I said, holding up the bag. "Got dinner." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's nice. Thanks." Then she turned back to her phone. "I'll call you back." I set the food out, plates, forks, everything. She scrolled while eating, barely looking up. I tried to make small talk, but her answers were clipped, distracted. Eventually, I gave up and just chewed in silence, my appetite souring. That's when I felt it, the distance. Not physical, not yet, but emotional. Like I was eating across from a stranger. The following Saturday was supposed to be our date night. We've been doing it since the first year of our marriage, every other weekend, no matter how busy we got. One night just for us. Dinner, a movie, sometimes just a drive with music blasting. It was our tradition, our promise to never get stale. I've been looking forward to it all week. She'd been quiet, I've been buried in work, and I figured this was the reset button we needed. That evening, I showered, put on a button-up she once said made me look like a man who knows what he's doing, and waited in the living room. She came out of the bedroom in sweats. No makeup, hair tied in a messy bun. "You're not getting ready?" I asked. She sighed, flopping onto the couch. "Babe, I'm too tired. We're drain me this week. Can't we just stay in?" I blinked at her. "We've been planning this for 2 weeks." "I know, but I just don't feel up to it." "You don't have to get all dressed up for me." "It's not about getting dressed up," I said, my voice tightening. "It's about us. About spending time together. You remember us, right?" She frowned, pulled a blanket over herself. "Don't start." I said I'm tired. The words hit me harder than I expected. Maybe because I've been swallowing doubts for weeks, try to convince myself nothing was wrong. But in that moment, watching her choose the couch over me, it boiled over. "You're tired a lot lately," I said carefully. Too tired to talk. Too tired for date night. Too tired for me. Her eyes snapped to mine, sharp and defensive. What's that supposed to mean? It means I feel like I'm living with a roommate, not a wife. And I'm starting to wonder what's actually draining you so much. Her jaw tightened. She sat up, pulling the blanket closer like armor. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking, I said, my voice low but steady. Because I see you glued to that phone every night, smiling, laughing, and then when it's me, it's like you've got nothing left to give. She stared at me for a long second, then scoffed. God, you sound paranoid. It's just work friends, group chats, memes. You think everything's some conspiracy against you. I leaned forward. I think respect is simple. If I come home after 12 hours breaking my back, the least you could do is look me in the eye instead of scrolling through strangers. Her face hardened. Stop acting like my father. I'm not doing anything wrong. Chapter 2. The ex enters the picture. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of lazy one where I usually try to steal back a piece of normal life. No alarms, no deadlines, no steel-toed boots on my feet. Just coffee, the newspaper, and maybe a football game later in the afternoon. She was at the kitchen table, phone in her hand again. Steam curled from her mug, untouched. She had that look, half smirk, half daydream, that had become all too familiar lately. What's so funny this early? I asked, pouring my coffee. She didn't look up. Oh, nothing. Just someone from the past popping up. I slid into the chair across from her. From the past. Her eyes flicked up briefly, then back to the screen. Yeah, my ex Jason. Remember him? The name hit me like a cold splash of water. Of course I remembered. 6'3", gym rat. Worked construction until his temper got him fired more times than I could count. She'd dated him in college before me. She once told me he had bad boy energy, but wasn't the settling down type. What about him? I asked slowly. She shrugged. He messaged me on Facebook. Just catching up, you know? He asked how life's been, if I'm happy, stuff like that. My gut clenched, but I kept my tone steady. And what did you say? That I'm married. Obviously, she said, rolling her eyes like I was being ridiculous. Relax. It's harmless. Harmless. That word clanged around in my head like a loose bolt in a machine. I sipped my coffee, watching her thumbs dance across the screen. You're still talking to him? She set the phone down with a sigh, like I'd already annoyed her. Babe, it's not a big deal. He just wanted to check in. We were together for a long time, remember? People stay in touch. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Staying in touch with your ex isn't exactly standard marriage practice. Her brows shot up. Wow. Okay, so now I'm not allowed to talk to anyone I dated before you. Talking and catching up are one thing, I said, voice tight. But you're smiling at your phone like a teenager. That doesn't look like just catching up to me. She gave a short laugh, but it was sharp, defensive. You're being paranoid. The word stung. I hated being painted as insecure when all I wanted was respect. Let me ask you something, I said, leaning forward. If I started texting an ex-girlfriend out of nowhere, would you be fine with it? Her lips pressed into a thin line. That's different. Ow! I shot back. Because it's you? She picked up her mug, took a slow sip, then looked me dead in the eyes. Because I trust myself. I know where my boundaries are. I let out a humorless laugh. That's not the point. Boundaries are supposed to protect us both. Marriage is about not even walking close to the line. Her phone buzzed on the table. She flipped it face down, but not before I saw the name flash. Jason. My jaw tightened. He's texting you right now, isn't he? She gave an exaggerated sigh. God, you're exhausting sometimes. He's just being friendly. You think every guy in the world is trying to get into my pants. I shot her a look. When the guy is your ex, yes. That's exactly what I think. Silence stretched between us. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the wall clock. Finally, she slammed her mug down. You know what your problem is? You're insecure. Always worried someone else is going to take me away. I held her stare. And you know what your problem is? You're too casual about things that can burn everything to the ground. She laughed again, but there was no humor in it this time, just that sharp edge, that dismissive tone. Wow, so dramatic. You think one little message from an ex is going to burn everything to the ground? I stood, pacing the kitchen, trying to control the heat rising in my chest. It's not the message. It's the disrespect, the way you're hiding your phone, The way you light up when he texts you. That's not harmless. She followed me with her eyes, arms folded. So what do you want me to do? Block him? Delete him? Pretend he doesn't exist? Yes. I snapped before I could stop myself. That's exactly what I want. Her jaw dropped, like I just asked her to cut off her own arm. You're unbelievable. Do you hear yourself? You're acting like some jealous teenager. Newsflash. I married you, not him. Then act like it, I said coldly. The words hung heavy in the air. She blinked, then shook her head slowly, a smirk forming at the corner of her lips, the kind that cut deeper than yelling ever could. Her voice came out low, deliberate, each word coated with disdain. If you can't trust me, maybe you're not the man I thought you were. Chapter 3. The Dinner Proposal. It was Tuesday night, the kind where the house felt too quiet. I was stretched out on the couch, half watching the news, half thinking about work. She sat at the other end, phone in hand as always, tapping the screen with little smiles breaking across her lips. I try not to look, try not to care, but the glow of that phone had become another person in the room with us, louder than the television, more present than me. After a few minutes of silence, she cleared her throat and said, almost too casually, so Jason asked if I wanted to grab dinner this week. The words sliced through me like a blade. I sat up, remote forgotten. What did you just say? She didn't flinch, just kept scrolling, then glanced at me like it was no big deal. Relax. It's just dinner. Don't be controlling. My jaw clenched so tight it ached. Dinner? With your ex? Yes, she said, rolling her eyes. He's in town for a couple of days, and he thought it would be nice to catch up. That's all it is. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, staring at her. Do you hear yourself? Married women don't go on dinner dates with ex-boyfriends. That's not catching up. That's crossing a line. She sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. It's not a date. You make everything sound so dramatic. He just wants to talk. Talk, I repeated bitterly. At night? Over dinner? Alone? Yeah, sounds completely innocent. She set her phone down with a thud and fixed me with a glare. You need to stop. You're making this into something it's not. If you trust me, you wouldn't care. There was again trust. Like my concern was weakness, not common sense. Every man knows what just dinner with an ex really means, I thought, my chest tight. It's not about the food. It's about unfinished business, about testing the waters. She knows it. I know it. But I swallow my pride. Out loud, I said, and what exactly do you expect me to do while you're out having this little catch-up dinner? She shrugged. I don't know. Watch a game, grab a beer, do guy stuff. Why do you have to act like I'm betraying you when nothing's even happened? Because it feels wrong, I said firmly. And you know it does, or else you wouldn't be trying so hard to convince me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The room buzzed with tension, the kind that makes your pulse pound in your ears. Finally, she folded her arms and leaned back. If you can't handle me having one harmless meal with someone I used to know, then maybe you really don't trust me at all. I hated the way she twisted it, how she flipped my instincts into accusations about my character. I wanted to say no, to put my foot down, draw the line, make it clear where respect ended and disrespect began. But I also knew what she'd say, how she'd paint me as insecure, jealous, controlling. And so, against every screaming instinct in my gut, I forced the words out. Fine. Go. Have dinner. She raised her eyebrows, surprised at how quickly I gave in. Really? Yeah, I said, my tone flat. I'm not going to chain you to the couch. Do what you want. She studied me for a moment, maybe searching for a crack in my calm exterior. Then she smiled, a small, satisfied smile, and picked her phone back up. Her thumbs flew across the screen as she typed out her reply. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore the burn in my chest. I just handed her permission to cross a boundary I knew should never be crossed. The night of the dinner, I came home early from work. I told myself it was to relax, but really, it was to see how she prepared. I wanted to watch, to read the truth in the little details. She was in the bedroom with the closet doors wide open, dresses flung across the bed. The faint scent of perfume already hung in the air. Big night, I asked, leaning on the doorframe. She glanced at me, then back at the mirror where she was holding up two dresses against her body. What do you think? red or black. I swallowed hard. For a friendly dinner? She frowned. Don't start. I just want to look nice. It's not a crime. Funny, I said, unable to stop myself. You haven't asked my opinion on what to wear for our date nights in months. Her eyes narrowed. You're unbelievable. Do you want it to look like a slob? No, I said quickly. It's a lot of effort. For someone you call just a friend. She huffed, turning back to the mirror. Red, then. He always said it was my color. My fists clenched at my sides, but I stayed quiet. The comment was a knife to the gut, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me bleed. She slipped into the dress, adjusting the straps, smoothing it down over her hips. Then came the heels, the ones she used to wear on our anniversaries. She sat on the edge of the bed, fastening the buckle slowly, almost ceremonially. Finally, she leaned toward the dresser and picked up a bottle of perfume. I watched as she spritzed it on her neck, then her wrists, then, just for good measure, a little behind her knees. The scent filled the room, sweet and intoxicating, and I realized I hadn't smelled it in months. I stood there, silent, my chest burning, as she gave herself one last look in the mirror. Hair curled, lips painted, perfume settling on her skin. She hadn't looked this excited, this alive in a long time. And the cruel part? She wasn't doing it for me. Chapter 4. Planting suspicion. The house felt different after she left. I watched her pull out of the driveway, headlights cutting across the street before disappearing into the night. The scent of her perfume still lingered in the hall, heavy and deliberate, like it wanted me to remember what it smelled like when it wasn't meant for me. I stood there for a long moment, arms folded, staring at the empty driveway. Every part of me wanted to believe I was overreacting, that she really was just catching up. But no matter how many times I repeated her words in my head, they didn't sound right. I sat down on the couch, TV remote in my hand, but I didn't turn it on. I just stared at the blank screen, seeing my reflection. A tired man, jaw tight, fists clenching and unclenching on his knees. The silence pressed in. My mind replayed the little things. The way she smiled at her phone, the excitement when she picked her dress, the way she said, "He always told me red was my color." None of it sat right. None of it looked like a married woman going to casual dinner. By the time 10 minutes had crawled by, I was pacing the living room like a caged animal. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I landed on the one guy I knew would shoot me straight, Derek. We've been friends since high school. The kind of friend who didn't sugarcoat, didn't pat you on the back with empty encouragement. If you were screwing up, he'd say it to your face. If someone was playing you, he'd call it. I hit dial. He answered on the second ring, his voice rough. Yo, what's up, man? I hesitated, then said, She's out with her ex right now. There was a pause, then a sharp laugh. You're joking. Wish I was, I muttered, sinking back onto the couch. She said he's just in town for a couple of days, wanted to grab dinner, and she didn't want me to be controlling. Derek didn't laugh again. His tone went flat, serious. Bro, if she still respected you, she wouldn't even ask. The words hit like a hammer. She swore it's just dinner. I said weakly, though the conviction in my voice was already gone. Come on, Derek said. You and I both know how that story goes. An ex doesn't want just dinner. And she knows it too. She's not stupid. I rubbed my forehead. So what the hell am I supposed to do? Tell her she can't go? That just makes me look like the jealous, insecure husband she keeps accusing me of being. He snorted. Man, she's already flipped the script on you. She's got you worried about looking insecure instead of her looking disrespectful. That's game playing. Don't fall for it. I didn't answer right away. The silence stretched until Derek spoke again, his tone softer but still blunt. Listen, you're a good dude. You work hard. You provide. You've never stepped out on her. You've earned respect. And if she's making you feel like some paranoid loser for expecting the basics, that's on her, not you. I closed my eyes, leaning my head back against the couch. His words echoed everything I've been afraid to say out loud. She told me they're meeting at the Olive Grill downtown. I finally muttered, 7 o'clock. Derek whistled. The Olive Grill? That place is basically designed for dates. Dim lighting, two-seater booths, wine list as long as your arm. She could have picked anywhere, but she picked there. I sat up straight. You're right. Of course I'm right. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? My throat tightened. What can I do? Show up? Follow her? That makes me the psycho husband stalking his wife. Or, Derek said slowly, it makes you the man who doesn't let himself get played blind. Big difference. I stayed quiet, the gears in my head grinding. Derek added, look, I'm not telling you to flip tables or start a scene. But don't sit on your couch like a sucker while she's out there playing dress-up for another man. If nothing's happening, fine, you'll see it for yourself. But if something is happening, at least you'll know. And knowing is better than sitting at home imagining the worst. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. He was right. The not knowing was already driving me insane. I'll think about it, I muttered. Don't think too long, Derek said firmly. Trust your gut. You've had instincts your whole life. Don't start ignoring them now, just because it's uncomfortable. We hung up after that, but his words stayed with me, heavy as bricks. An hour ticked by. I tried everything to distract myself. Turned on the TV, flipped through channels, grabbed a beer, took 2 sips, set it down, paced the hallway, sat back down, stared at the clock. Every minute felt like 10. I pulled up the restaurant's website on my phone, scrolling through pictures. Derek was right. The Olive Grill wasn't some casual diner. It was dim, intimate, filled with wine glasses and candlelight. Every photo screamed romance. And the more I thought about it, the more little things didn't add up. She told me dinner was at 7, but she left the house at 6. The restaurant was only 15 minutes away. Why leave so early? She said Jason was just in town for a couple of days, but I'd overheard her telling her sister on the phone last week about some old friend moving back permanently. I replayed our conversations in my head, digging for inconsistencies. The way she had brushed off my concerns too quickly. The way she hadn't even tried to invite me along, like that option didn't exist. The knots in my stomach tightened with each thought. By the time the clock hit 7:30, I was done pacing. Done pretending I could sit here and play the trusting husband while my wife sat in a dimly lit booth with a man she used to sleep with. I grabbed my keys off the counter, the metal jingling in my hand like an alarm bell. My reflection in the hallway mirror stared back at me, jaw set, eyes hard, a man who finally made up his mind. I wasn't going to sit home wondering anymore. I was going to see for myself. Chapter 5. The countermove. The drive toward downtown was supposed to calm me down, but it didn't. The closer I got to the Olive Grill, the tighter my grip on the wheel became. Every red light felt like an eternity, every car in front of me like an obstacle in the way of the truth. But as much as I wanted answers, I knew walking in there alone might not be the smartest move. Confronting her and Jason head-on, with nothing but my anger, could spiral into a disaster I couldn't walk back from. I needed a witness. Someone who'd see what I saw. Someone she couldn't gaslight me against later. That's when a name popped into my head. Her best friend, Emily. Emily had been in our lives for years. She and my wife went back to college, sorority sisters, roommates, practically inseparable in their 20s. And although she never said it outright, I knew she didn't have much love for Jason. She'd made little digs about him before, subtle comments about his arrogance, how he treated women like trophies. If anyone could see through my wife's excuses, it would be her. I pulled into a gas station parking lot and dialed her number before I could second-guess myself. She answered on the second ring. Hey, what's up? My voice came out rougher than I intended. Emily, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. There was a pause. Okay, what's going on? She's out with Jason. Right now. At the Olive Grill. Silence. Then Emily's voice sharpened. You're kidding me. I wish I was. My knuckles tightened around the steering wheel. She dressed up, sprayed perfume I haven't smelled in months, and told me not to be controlling. I tried to let it go, but I can't sit at home while this plays out. I need someone to see it with me. Someone who won't just take her word later when she spins it. Emily let out a sharp exhale. Unbelievable. I told her years ago that guy was no good. He's poison. And she's actually entertaining him now? After everything you've done for her? Yeah, I muttered. So, will you come with me? There was no hesitation. Send me the address. I'll meet you there. By the time Emily arrived, I was parked a block away from the restaurant. Engine off, hands tapping nervously on the steering wheel. She pulled up in a small sedan and slid out, striding over with a look that could cut steel. Her blonde hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she wore jeans and a leather jacket, casual, but her expression was all business. "This is insane," she muttered as she climbed into the passenger seat. "She actually thinks this is okay." "She swore it was just dinner," I said bitterly. But the way she looked getting ready, it wasn't for just dinner. Emily crossed her arms, shaking her head. "I know her. She likes attention, sure, but Jason? That's a whole other level. He's not the type to just have a friendly chat over appetizers." "Exactly," I said. For a moment, we sat there in silence, both staring at the glow of the restaurant sign down the street. Finally, Emily spoke. "So what's the plan?" I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. "We walk in like we're on a date. Sit where we can see them. Act casual. No scene, no shouting, at least not yet. Just let her see that I see." Emily smirked. "You want to flip the script. Make her feel the heat without saying a word." "Damn right." She leaned back in her seat, crossing her legs. "I like it. And honestly, I wouldn't mind watching her squirm a little. She thinks she's slick, but she's never been as subtle as she thinks she is." I turned to her, jaw tight, but a faint smile tugging at my lips. "If she thinks she's playing chess, let's see how she handles checkmate." Chapter 6. The Restaurant Showdown. The Olive Grill sat on the corner of a busy downtown block, its tall windows glowing amber against the evening. From the street, you could see couples inside, leaning close over candlelight, waiters weaving between tables with glasses of wine, laughter rising and falling like the hum of a well-rehearsed orchestra. And right in the center of that performance was my wife. Through the glass, I spotted her instantly. She wasn't hard to find. She always had a way of commanding attention, whether she meant to or not. She sat at a small, two-person table with Jason, her ex, her body angled toward him, shoulders leaning in slightly, the way a person leans towards something they want to be close to. She was laughing, not the polite chuckle I got home these days, but a full, open laugh that made her toss her hair back the way she used to when we first started dating. And Jason? He looked smug, leaning back in his chair like he'd already won something. His arm rested carelessly on the back of her chair, just enough to signal intimacy, not enough for her to push it away. He was talking, animated, using his hands, and she was eating it up. I felt Emily stiffen beside me. "Unbelievable," she muttered. She actually dressed up for him. She had. Black dress, heels I hadn't seen in months, lipstick darker than her usual. She told me it was just dinner, but this was a date. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay composed. "You ready?" Emily smirked, sliding her arm through mine as though we'd been on 100 dates before. "Let's make an entrance." The door chimed as we walked in. The scent of roasted garlic and seared steak hit immediately, mixing with the low buzz of conversation. The hostess looked up with a polished smile. "Table for two?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "Somewhere near the center, if possible." She grabbed 2 menus and led us forward. And that's when it happened. My wife spotted me. Her face fell in an instant. The laughter vanished, her smile died, and she froze halfway to lifting her glass of wine. Jason, oblivious at first, kept talking until he noticed her eyes dart past him. Then he turned, following her gaze, and saw me. The smugness flickered. Emily and I followed the hostess to a table just 2 down from theirs. We sat, close enough that there was no mistaking the deliberate placement. I made sure to angle my chair toward my wife, not Jason. The silence between their table and ours stretched tight. My wife's fork clattered against her plate as she set it down too hard. Finally, she hissed across the space. "What are you doing here?" I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice. Instead, I smiled faintly, leaning back like I was perfectly at ease. "Same as you. Just dinner." Jason shifted uncomfortably, his earlier arrogance cracking. He gave a little laugh, trying to cut the tension. "Man, small world, huh? Guess we all had the same idea tonight." I didn't even look at him. My eyes stayed on her. Yeah, real small world. Her cheeks flushed. She fiddled with her napkin, trying to regain composure. "You're being ridiculous. This isn't what it looks like." Emily leaned in then, playing her role flawlessly. "Funny, because from here, it looks exactly like what it looks like." Jason straightened in his chair, clearing his throat. "Look, dude, don't take it the wrong way. We're just catching up, that's all." I turned my head just enough to let him know I'd heard him, then shifted my gaze back to my wife like he was background noise. Catching up? That what you call it? She bristled, eyes narrowing. Stop it. You're making a scene. I chuckle under my breath, low and cocky. Trust me, sweetheart, if I wanted to make a scene, everyone in this restaurant would know it. Jason's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. He glanced around, clearly aware of other diners stealing glances in our direction. He wasn't as comfortable in the spotlight as he'd pretended. Emily smirked, sipping her water. You know, I've been telling her for years what kind of guy you are, she said to Jason casually. Guess some people never learn. That landed. Jason shifted in his seat, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. But my wife? She was glaring at me now, her voice clipped, almost trembling. You had no right to come here. I tilted my head, studying her. No right? You're my wife. You tell me it's just dinner, then I find you dressed up like it's prom night, giggling over wine with your ex. And I'm the one out of line. Her lips parted, but no words came. She reached for her glass, hiding behind it, as she took a long sip. The silence stretched again, heavier now. Other couples nearby had grown quieter, stealing looks at us, sensing the storm without needing to know the details. Jason cleared his throat again, this time softer. Maybe we should. I cut him off without looking his way. This doesn't concern you. For the first time since we walked in, Jason leaned back, hands up in surrender. The smugness was gone. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice so only she could hear. I'll say it once. Respect isn't optional. Not in my marriage. You wanted to test the line. Now you know where it is. Her eyes glistened, whether from anger or shame, I couldn't tell. She looked away, blinking rapidly, her chest rising and falling as she fought for control. Emily reached across the table, touching my hand lightly as if to steady the act we were putting on. Dinner's on me tonight, she said brightly, loud enough for my wife to hear. After all, this feels like a celebration. My wife's face drained of color. I leaned back again, letting the weight of the moment hang there, calm and collected on the outside, even as my pulse hammered. Then, with a small smile tugging at the corner of my mouth, I delivered the line that sealed it. Same as you. Just dinner. Chapter 7. Breaking point. The silence after my last words was deafening. For a moment, it felt like the entire restaurant had gone still, every fork paused in midair, every conversation muted, waiting to see what would happen next. My wife's eyes shimmered in the dim light, but she didn't let the tears fall right there at the table. No, she clenched her jaw, pressed her napkin against her lips, and stood so quickly her chair nearly toppled backward. The legs of her chair screeched across the hardwood as she pushed it away, the sound turning every curious head in our direction. Her hand shook as she gathered her purse. I can't, she stammered, her voice breaking. I can't sit here and listen to this. Jason half rose from his seat, reaching out as if to stop her. Hey, wait, don't. But she pulled away sharply, glaring at him too, as though his presence had become unbearable. Without another word, she spun on her heels and marched toward the hallway that led to the bathrooms. The sway of her dress, the clack of her heels, every motion screamed of desperation. I didn't move. I didn't chase her. I didn't beg her to sit down and talk it out. I simply leaned back in my chair and exhaled, as though a weight had lifted from me instead of her storming off. Emily smirked, stabbing a piece of steak with her fork. Well, she said lightly, that was dramatic. I couldn't help it, I laughed. A low, genuine laugh that seemed to cut right through the thick tension. Heads turned back to their own tables as the show appeared to be over, but I knew every pair of eyes in the place was still half on us. Jason sat back down, clearly flustered, trying to play it cool. His smirk returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Man, you really had to embarrass her like that? I finally turned toward him, the first time I gave him direct acknowledgement all night. Embarrass her? She did that all on her own. Emily raised her glass of wine. Amen. Jason shifted in his chair, pretending to study his plate. His smug facade was crumbling by the minute. The waiter returned, oblivious to the storm that had just blown through. Everything all right over here? Perfect, Emily said brightly, handing him her empty plate. Best meal I've had in weeks. I chuckled, nodding along. Yeah, everything's just fine. We're enjoying ourselves. Jason cleared his throat. Can you check on her? The lady that just went to the restroom. The waiter blinked, unsure. I'll let the hostess know. He scurried off. Emily and I clinked glasses, laughing softly between bites. The more we enjoyed ourselves, the more it ate at Jason. I could see it, the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes darted toward the hallway every time someone walked by, hoping it was her coming back. But it wasn't. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. My wife never returned. Jason finally pushed his plate away, rubbing the back of his neck. She's probably just cooling off. I smirked. Or maybe she realized what she walked into. Emily leaned forward, her chin resting on her hand as she studied Jason. Tell me something, she said sweetly. When you texted her, did you really think she wouldn't get caught? Or did you just assume she could juggle two men like some circus act? Jason's face tightened. Look, I didn't force her into anything. She wanted to be here. Exactly, I said calmly, slicing into the last of my food. That's the part you should think about. Jason looked down, suddenly very interested in his water glass. He was no longer the smug, confident ex trying to reclaim something lost. Now, he looked like a man who realized he'd been invited into a game he couldn't win. When the check arrived, it was almost poetic. The waiter placed it squarely on their table. Not ours, a silent reminder of who had initiated the evening. Jason blinked at it, then looked around as if my wife might come sweeping back to handle it. But she didn't. Emily smirked, whispering just loud enough for me to hear, checkmate. Jason cleared his throat again, fumbling for his wallet. Guess this one's on me. I leaned back, savoring every second. Looks like it. He pulled out his card, his movements stiff, his earlier bravado long gone. The waiter collected it and disappeared, leaving Jason sitting there, red-faced, pretending to be unfazed. Meanwhile, Emily and I enjoyed dessert, chocolate mousse that melted rich and sweet on the tongue. Every laugh we shared, every smile across the table, was a knife twisting deeper into the wound across the room. I imagined her, locked in the bathroom, mascara running, leaning against the cold tile as reality crashed down on her. She wanted to play games, to test the boundaries of loyalty and respect. But games come with winners and losers. And tonight, she was losing. Jason tried one last time to reclaim ground. You know, he said, forcing a chuckle, she'll probably hate both of us after this. I dabbed my mouth with my napkin and looked him straight in the eye. I don't need her to like me. I need her to respect me. Big difference. Emily raised her glass again, smirking. Cheers to that. Jason had no comeback. He just sat there, shoulders hunched, waiting for the waiter to bring the receipt so he could sign it and disappear. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt, or jealous, or even second-guessing myself. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt like I was in control again. Not because I'd caught her in a lie, not because I'd embarrassed her, but because I'd shown her clearly, undeniably, that respect is not negotiable. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the hum of the restaurant settle back into its rhythm around me. My wife was still hiding in the bathroom. Her ex was paying for the tab she abandoned. And I was sitting with a full stomach, a clear head, and the upper hand. For once, the power dynamic had flipped. She thought she was moving pieces on a board I couldn't see. But tonight, the king didn't fall. Tonight, she was the one cornered, humiliated, and left scrambling for her next move. Chapter 8. Aftermath at home. The ride home was silent, but not the peaceful kind of silence that comes after a long day. No, this was the heavy, suffocating kind, thick with unsaid words, accusations, and the echo of everything that had just happened back at the restaurant. She drove. Her grip on the steering wheel was white-knuckled, her jaw locked tight, her breathing uneven. Every red light seemed to stretch longer than usual, and each time I glanced sideways, I caught the glisten of tears in her eyes she was fighting not to let spill. I didn't speak. Not yet. My silence wasn't surrender. It was deliberate. Let her stew. Let her replay the scene over and over in her head. Let her know that when the conversation finally happened, it would be on my terms. When we finally pulled into the driveway, she killed the engine a little too aggressively, yanking the keys out as though the ignition had personally offended her. We sat there for a beat, the cooling tick of the car engine filling the void. Then she snapped. "You embarrassed me tonight." Her voice cracked through the air like a whip. She turned toward me, eyes red-rimmed, fury trembling in her words. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" Everyone in that restaurant was staring at me like I stepped out of the car without replying. My calmness only made her angrier. Inside the house, the air felt different, charged, volatile. The moment the door shut behind us, she exploded again. "You set me up," she accused, throwing her purse onto the couch so hard it slid to the floor. "You and Emily, God, do you two think this is funny? Do you think making a fool out of me in public proves something? That you're a big man now?" I dropped my keys on the counter, slowly turned, and looked her dead in the eyes. My voice was low, steady, but sharp enough to cut glass. "No," I said. "I didn't humiliate you. You humiliated yourself the second you said yes to him." She froze, lips parting as though the words had physically struck her. I stepped closer, refusing to let her look away. "You made the choice. You entertained him. You dressed up for him. You leaned in across that table like some lovesick teenager." My chest rose and fell, the rage controlled but burning hot. "Don't you dare put that on me." Her face twisted with a mix of guilt and defiance. She wanted to deny it, to fight it, but the truth in my words cornered her. Finally, her anger cracked. Her shoulders slumped, her eyes welled up, and the tears she'd been holding back spilled freely. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. I barked a bitter laugh. "Oh, I understand perfectly." "No," she cried out, clutching her hair, as though pulling at it might relieve the pressure inside her skull. You don't get it all." She paced the living room, words tumbling out between sobs. "I spend every day working, paying bills, running this house. I come home, and it's just routine. Everything's predictable. Everything's the same." But when Jason messaged me, she broke off, covering her mouth like she'd just confessed a sin too dark to be spoken. The name hit me like a knife. Jason. Hearing her say it aloud was worse than watching them together at that table. I clenched my fists but forced my voice to stay calm. "Go on," I said through gritted teeth. Her eyes squeezed shut, tears streaming down. "He makes me feel wanted." The words dropped between us like a bomb, detonating silently but powerfully. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt, my ears ringing, my chest tightening with a pressure I couldn't release. Wanted. Like I wasn't enough. Like everything I had given, my loyalty, my long hours at work, my sacrifices, was invisible to her because some ghost from her past had sent a few flattering messages. I turned away, staring at the wall, my jaw aching from how hard I was clenching it. Inside my head, the rage screamed. 20 years of loyalty, and that's what it comes down to? A man sliding into your DMs? But beneath the rage was something worse. Heartbreak. Because the truth was raw, undeniable. She wasn't lying. She did feel something with him that she claimed she didn't with me. And that wasn't just betrayal, it was rejection at my very core. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "So that's it." My voice was quieter now, but colder. "That's your excuse? He makes you feel wanted." She sobbed harder, shaking her head. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I swear I didn't. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did." I spun back toward her, my voice rising, no longer calm. "You didn't just hurt me. You broke something you can't glue back together with tears and excuses." Her hands trembled as she reached out. "I still love you, love." I snapped, pulling back. "Don't use that word. Don't you dare use that word while you're telling me another man makes you feel wanted. Love doesn't humiliate your husband in public. Love doesn't sneak around under the cover of just dinner. Love doesn't." My voice cracked despite me fighting it. "Love doesn't make me feel like I was never enough." She crumpled onto the couch, burying her face in her hands, her sobs shaking her whole body. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she choked out. "I don't know why I did it. I stared at her, my chest aching, my mind a battlefield between fury and sorrow. Part of me wanted to scream until the walls shook. Part of me wanted to walk out and never look back. And yet, another part, some broken, loyal part, still wanted to reach down, pull her into my arms, and beg her to choose me again. The war inside me was tearing me apart. I dragged a hand down my face, my voice raw when I finally spoke. You wanted excitement. You wanted to feel wanted. Fine. But understand this. I looked down at her, shaking my head slowly. You didn't just cheat with him tonight. You cheated every time you smiled at your phone. Every time you lied about being too tired. Every time you made me feel like I was crazy for asking questions. That's what you did. She sobbed harder, unable to answer, her body curled into itself on the couch. I turned away, staring out the window at the quiet street beyond, my reflection faint in the glass. I could see the man I was, a husband who had built his life around loyalty, and I could see the cracks forming, threatening to shatter him entirely. Inside, my heart raged and bled at the same time, torn in two directions, half screaming to walk away, half screaming to fight for something that might already be gone. And in that silence, one truth became painfully clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 9. Decision and Consequences. The morning after was thick with silence. Not the kind of silence born from peace or mutual comfort, but the suffocating, leaden weight of two people orbiting each other in the same house while carrying the rubble of the night before. She sat at the kitchen table, a mug of untouched coffee cooling between her hands. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, hair tied back in a haphazard knot like she hadn't slept at all. I stood by the counter, staring at my own reflection in the dark surface of my coffee, gripping the mug too tightly. The storm from the night before hadn't cleared. It had just settled into a cold, steady drizzle. Finally, I broke the silence. My voice was steady, but every word came like a hammer striking steel. We're not going to keep circling this. I need an answer from you right here, right now. Her eyes lifted slowly, watery but sharp. An answer to what? To us. I set the mug down with a sharp click on the counter. You either respect this marriage, or you walk away from it. No more halfway. No more excuses. Choose. Her lips parted, trembling. For a second, I thought I saw regret flicker there. But just as quickly, it hardened into defensiveness. You're giving me ultimatums now, she shot back, her voice cracking. After years of you barely even being here? Do you have any idea what it's like to be married to a man who's always at work? Who comes home exhausted, distracted, like the only thing that matters is his job? I laughed bitterly. Ah, there it is. I was wondering how long it would take for you to turn this into my fault. She slammed her hands on the table, standing abruptly. Because it is your fault. You buried yourself in work. You forgot how to make me feel like a woman. You stopped noticing me, stopped wanting me. What was I supposed to do? Just sit here and rot what you typed away at your precious spreadsheets. I felt the fury rise in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. Calm was stronger than shouting. Calm was control. You know what the difference is between me and him? I asked coldly. I was building us a life. I was sacrificing for us. And he swoops in with a few lazy messages, and suddenly he's the hero. Her eyes flinched like the truth stung, but she pressed on, desperate. You don't get it. Jason reminded me of what it feels like to be wanted, to feel alive again. You used to look at me like that, back when we were younger, back before your job swallowed you whole. But that man, he's been gone for years. I leaned against the counter, folding my arms, my voice low and sharp. No, he's not gone. You just stopped seeing him. Because it was easier to blame me than admit you were chasing some pathetic nostalgia trip with your ex. Her breathing quickened. Tears spilled down her cheeks again, but this time they didn't soften me. They looked like weapons now, tools she used when cornered. You're twisting this, she whispered. You're trying to make me the villain when you drove me into his arms. I chuckled darkly, shaking my head. No, you walked there all on your own. Don't you dare hand me the map to your betrayal and pretend I drew it. She froze at that, eyes wide, lips trembling. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. That's when the truth hit me, like a final puzzle piece sliding into place. She was already halfway gone. Every word out of her mouth wasn't a plea to save us, but an excuse to justify why she'd already betrayed what we had. My chest felt heavy, but my mind was clear. I straightened, looking her dead in the eye. So this is it, huh? After everything I gave, after all the years, this is what you've got for me. Excuses and a sob story. She covered her face, sobbing harder now. I didn't want it to end like this. I stepped closer, my voice cutting through her breakdown with icy precision. Neither did I, but you made sure of it. She looked up at me then, desperate, searching for some trace of softness in my eyes. But there was none left to find. I let the silence hang for a beat, then delivered the line with a cold finality that even surprised me. Thanks for proving I'm better off without you. Her face crumpled, a sharp gasp escaping her lips as though the words had physically gutted her. And that was the moment I turned and walked out of the kitchen. The air outside felt different, clearer, sharper, as if I'd stepped out of a suffocating cage. My phone buzzed, and I saw Emily's name flashing across the screen. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I answered. Her voice was calm, but laced with concern. How bad was it? Bad, I admitted. My throat was raw, but my tone stayed steady. But necessary. There was a pause on the other end, then her voice softened. I told you before, I never trusted him. And I never trusted her with him. But I do trust you. Something about those words, I trust you, hit harder than I expected. After all the lies, the manipulations, the games, those 3 words felt like oxygen. I don't even know what happens next. I confessed, running a hand down my face. You don't need to know right now, she replied firmly. You just need to remember who you are. You're stronger than she ever gave you credit for. And you don't have to go through this alone. The unexpected warmth in her voice anchored me. For the first time in days, I felt something steady under my feet. And as I hung up the phone, one thing was clear. My world had cracked, but I wasn't the one broken. She was. Chapter 10. Redemption and Closing Note. The morning sunlight spilled through the blinds, painting stripes across the hardwood floors of a house that suddenly felt too large, too hollow. I stood in the kitchen, mug in hand, staring at the steam curling upward from my coffee, thinking about how quickly the life I'd built could twist into something unrecognizable. For years, I'd poured myself into work, into providing, into keeping the world stable for the woman I loved. And now, the walls I had trusted, the life I had safeguarded, were fractured. But today, the fracture felt more like a clearing than a trap. I'd spent the previous night replaying everything, the restaurant, her whispers to Jason, her tears and excuses, the way she tried to pin my absence on my work. And yet, despite the rage, the betrayal, the heartbreak, there was something sharper that rose above all of it. Clarity. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't grovel. I wouldn't let someone else's selfishness define my value. I picked up my phone and dialed Emily. Morning, she answered, her voice still soft but firm, carrying that anchor I'd come to rely on. Morning, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I needed to hear someone else say it. That I'm not insane for feeling the way I do. That I'm not overreacting for putting myself first. You're not, she said without hesitation. You've been loyal, steady, a man who's done everything right. She's the one who lost her way. Her words warmed me, a quiet fire igniting in the pit of my chest. I think I'm done chasing someone who's already halfway gone. I think it's time to reclaim what's mine, my dignity, my life, my peace. Emily's laugh was soft but approving. Finally, about time you remembered who you are. I allowed myself a small smile. Yeah, about time. The first step was the confrontation at home. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I simply laid out the facts, calmly, deliberately. You made your choices, I said. I've made mine. I'm not staying in a marriage where respect is optional. Her lips parted, but she had no words. Only the faint tremble of someone who had realized too late that control had shifted. I continued, voice steady, unflinching. I've spent years being loyal, sacrificing, building a life with you. You treated that like it was nothing. You flirted with temptation, lied about boundaries, and humiliated both of us. There's no going back from that. Not tonight, not tomorrow. She shrank under the weight of my words. I could see it, the moment she understood that the power she thought she held had evaporated. I'm done, I said finally. You can stay, you can leave, but you cannot have me bending to excuses anymore. And with that, I didn't wait for her to respond. I left the room, my steps purposeful, each one echoing the resolve I'd found within myself. The next weeks were a study in reclamation. I returned to work with a lighter step, not because the work mattered more than her, but because it was mine to control. I spent evenings walking through the neighborhood, feeling the air in my lungs, noticing the small details I'd overlooked while my mind was clouded by betrayal. Emily became more than a witness to my story. She became a confidant, a mirror reflecting back the man I was without someone else's drama clouding my vision. She reminded me of my worth, of the strength that had been buried under years of loyalty taken for granted. I didn't reach out to her, my wife. I didn't need to. Let her wallow in her choices. The lesson had been learned, the damage done, and I would not be defined by someone else's failings. Then came the moment that truly shifted everything. I attended a family gathering we'd once attended together. She was there, trying to blend in, her forced smiles and careful gestures like a mask stretched too thin. I walked in with Emily at my side, confident, composed. Heads turned, not just to notice me, but to register the energy I carried. A man unbroken, unshaken, untouchable by her manipulations. Some whispered, some stared. I smiled politely, nodding, acknowledging their presence without needing their validation. Because the validation I needed was no longer hers, nor anyone else's. She caught my eye across the room. The flinch in her expression, the shadow of guilt she could not hide, was enough. I could have confronted her, shamed her further, reminded the room of her betrayal, but I didn't. That power, that satisfaction, wasn't mine to take from someone else. It was mine to feel within myself. Back at home, I settled into the quiet of the night, the kind that feels earned after turmoil. I poured a glass of whiskey, letting the burn slide down my throat and settle like the resolve that had been hard-won. I thought back to every moment, the early years, the loyalty, the betrayal, the humiliation. Every bite, every heartbeat, every sleepless night had taught me one thing. Respect isn't begged for. It's either given freely or it's gone. And once it's gone, so am I. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the shadows dancing across the walls. The world outside hummed with life, indifferent to the dramas of one marriage, but that was fine. I had my clarity. I had my control. I had my dignity. And in that, I found a strange, quiet joy. Because some lessons can only be learned in fire, and some victories can only be felt after the fight. I didn't need her apologies. I didn't need her explanations. I didn't need validation from anyone who had already chosen another path. I only needed myself. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty. I was free.